recording now.
You mean with Ghost?
I
did that last time though.
No.
You're gonna sponsor it? It's your turn.
Okay, cool. All right. Hey everybody, welcome back to another Corner Booth podcast. We're having a live event tonight, so we've got a few guests who are watching live. And we are here with art director Bill Deli, who is experienced in both feature film, high-end television, and independent projects. So we're glad to have him. And we'll get started here in just a moment.
But first, a word from our sponsor.
There you go.
Well, first of all, actually, I want to say that this is a very special episode because we're doing a live meetup like we did our first two episodes were live, and so this time we're here at Bob's Big Boy waiting for people to show up too. And we've actually got some people here already. And but yeah, today this episode is brought to you by the drawing website, which is the website where if you want to learn to draw, that's the website for you. Specifically, it's a website specifically catered for anybody who thinks that you need talent to draw, because that is absolutely just a myth. You do not need to be quote unquote talented. Some people, yes, have an affinity to it in the same way that some people are good at math.
So you're saying that anybody can learn to draw?
Yeah, anybody can learn to draw.
Who knew? Who knew?
And so, like, just go to my site, and then you'll get. You could download all the information. You could read all the information there, or you could or if you subscribe to the newsletter, you get my book, my draw foo book. There for free, and then there's other things there that you can pick up if you want to actually have a print copy.
Isn't there also a Facebook page for Draw Foo?
There is a Facebook group where there's a community there, and yeah, so we have a community there where we encourage each other to draw, and sometimes if somebody asks me for pointers or tips, I give pointers or tips there too, and the newsletter I give pointers or tips every week.
Say, what is that website?
It's thedrawingwebsite.com.
Awesome.
Cool.
And
well, Bill, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, this is another exciting episode of
The End.
So, Bill, what's in this black box over here behind me?
Great for radio.
It's
a large black matte box, and inside is a golden statue.
I take it everywhere I go.
I noticed that. It's got a chain on it. What's that for? So you can wear it?
And swing it around.
So that's an Emmy, right?
Yes.
So, Bill, what did you win that Emmy for?
I won that for personal achievement for Kung Fu Panda, color design.
Awesome.
Kung shoes.
Awesome. Well, Bill and I first met a couple years ago, wasn't it now?
Yeah, 20 quarter of a century.
Back on the Swan Princess, and you were doing backgrounds and you were supervising on some of that too, weren't you?
Well, yeah, they sent me overseas to supervise, but most of it was just standard background painting.
Yeah, how much of the backgrounds were done here on that? Most of them? Half of them? On the Swan Princess?
I would say about a tenth of them, I would imagine.
Yeah.
There was a big crew there.
So
10 of the better ones, I would like to think.
When did you decide you wanted to get into animation? Is that how you started your career? What was your career plan when you got started?
Well, originally when I was 11, I wanted to draw Spider-Man comic books. And then I went to met some artists, and they said just become good, go to college, and you'll get work. And then when I got to college, I decided I want to do movie posters. So then I came out here to go
do movie posters.
Yeah.
And
so
how many?
You wanted to be Drew Struzan?
That's exactly what I wanted to do. Yeah.
Everybody wanted
that.
Everybody wanted that.
You should have gone to the same school he did then. If you had, maybe you would be doing movie posters.
He went to Art Center.
And where'd you go?
Art Center.
Oh.
Wait a minute.
What happened?
Photoshop, I think, happened. Everything started being photographed. So he was like the only guy doing it after a while. So.
You went to school in Detroit first, right?
Yes.
And what kind of courses were you taking?
Illustration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you came out here,
Yeah.
took more illustration courses.
Yeah.
And you were on track to do movie posters.
Well, that was the plan, and then Disney came, and I got a internship at Disney Feature, and that kind of
And that ruined you for life.
it did. And then I got stained with the.
They offered
with
you
animation. They paid me, so that was
They
good.
gave you an
I
offer you
liked that.
couldn't refuse.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
what you're saying?
Cool.
They paid me money, and I like that.
They paid me.
That's always a good
They
thing to
offered you
get
money,
paid.
and that was.
So it was a paid internship.
Yes.
While you're going to school.
Yeah, and it was much more traditional. At the time, Art Center was doing a lot of weird montage, playing with the surface of the picture, where it made it look like they had balls sitting on the surface. I didn't like any of that. I liked the more traditional, and Disney did that, so I thought it was a good fit for me.
So what are some of the Disney projects you've worked on?
I worked on. Well, at the time I was interning. It was The Great Mouse Detective, and they were working on The Mermaid, Little Mermaid, at that time. And then when I worked at Disney Feature after I graduated, I worked on Beauty and the Beast.
Cool.
And and then I also did Gargoyles TV show.
Well, I remember that shot. I remember that shot in Beauty and the Beast. You did, didn't you? Do the one where Belle's first coming in the castle and the gargoyles are over her.
Oh yeah.
She's coming in. It's a very
Nice.
iconic shot. And I know you also worked on part of that song sequence with Gaston, right? Where it's got it's inside the pub there, and it's got the painting of Gaston.
Oh yeah.
And all the animal heads
Yep,
up there. That was so cool.
That's
Thank
awesome, man. I wanted to point out that I just recently saw a list of like the top 10 or top 15 Disney afternoon shows or just TV shows of all time, and Gargoyles is like number 2. It's way up there on the list, man. So second only, I believe, to DuckTales.
Okay.
So that I just wanted you to know, like your show, the show you worked on is like still loved by all.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. It was a fun show. It was hard. I struggled on it a lot, and but I still have some stuff in my portfolio.
What did you do on that show on Gargoyles?
Background piece, under Frank Power and I forgot the other guy's name.
But when you say you struggled, was that because they were just pushing you and they were really ambitious?
Yeah, they wanted it to be like 150%, so that they would get maybe 80 or 90% from overseas. That was the idea. So they had to be they had to be beautiful.
I don't think I think a lot of times people take for granted, and of course you've been art directing for years now, and you and I have done projects, and you've art directed on projects. For me, Larry Whitaker here, by the way. We didn't introduce ourselves.
We're just some guys who found a phone.
Did not introduce ourselves at all. We just
but
if you guys don't know us by now, we're really kind of sad
just
over
listen
here.
to a previous show. We actually introduced ourselves in a previous show in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, so you and I worked on several projects together, and you do a lot of different styles. I think people take for granted the environments because if they work, you don't think about it,
It's
right?
It's like a music score.
Yeah, it's got to be there. But boy, when it doesn't work, it's not working.
Right, and it's kind of that classic, I guess, curse, if you will, of entertainment. Is like when people are when all cylinders are firing, everything just looks so natural and easy, and you're like, yeah, it only took us about a month to get that one shot that everybody loves. So
what are some of the other films that you've worked on?
I worked on a lot of unsuccessful ones.
That's good enough.
Let's see, Swan Princess was one.
But very popular.
Yeah.
It is. It's
Is
very
it
popular.
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But the check's cleared, right?
Yeah, well, I was paid. That's ultimately what was
That's
important.
the only thing.
Thumbelina with Don
that's the only
Bluth.
important
That was
thing.
one. Quest for Camelot. That was.
But then there's some really.
Then Iron Giant.
Iron Giant. That's an awesome movie.
Yeah,
and their paintings on that are gorgeous.
Well, thank you. It was.
What an unsuccessful movie that was.
Well, financially, it really wasn't that successful.
It wasn't. For
Initially.
whatever reason, it wasn't well marketed, I guess.
Yeah.
At the time.
Well,
But very
studio obviously
cutting.
didn't believe in it.
But what a cutting edge movie! If it weren't for films like that, you never would have seen The Incredibles or Ratatouille. I don't think this would have happened.
And that film is just like such a great example of strong storytelling. I mean, it's so heartfelt. It's like they really nailed the emotion and the humanity in there.
Yeah, and I was real fortunate. My first feature was.
Any other? Are there any other popular films that you've worked on?
Well, I was a background supervisor on Space Jam.
What an awesome movie!
Yeah, Larry's only holding up his jacket.
I told you, I did about it.
Come on, man, we talked about this.
Right in front of Bill's face.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But yeah, the nice thing I remember with Iron Giant was it just felt so good to work on a good movie because I started off on Swan. I mean,
We had fun on Space Jam too. Though. That was fun.
Yeah,
it was really down
was
and
fun.
dirty though.
Yeah,
we had
it
to
was.
get that down fast,
Get it
but
done, get it done,
came
get it
out
done,
looking
get it done.
great.
Yeah, we were.
And all joking aside, awesome film, and it's like, I mean, there's so many cool stories. I mean, because Larry's talked about that before too. Like, there's just so many cool.
That was a hectic show too. I remember when I first started on it. For the first month, once a week, I would be like, "Okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. It's not worth it. I'm quitting." And then a couple hours later, I'd be okay. Keep going, you know.
Well, we'd go to lunch and we'd calm down.
Yeah.
Do a little venting.
But I was sitting there going, "Yeah, I'm doing bugs this week," and you're sitting there, paint this freaking drawing.
Deal with people who couldn't paint, and it was crazy.
How can you not paint?
But
How can you not paint?
well, that's a great question. They don't paint well.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Water?
Good.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
But no, when I first worked on Beauty and the Beast, it was like you started off on a great movie, and then I had all these movies that weren't that satisfying to work on because I didn't think they were that well done. And then to get Iron Giant, it just felt so good to work on a great project again. It was very satisfying when I could stay in the final movie.
You get really involved with the story. It's not just I got to do this.
I guess you do, but it makes a difference with it if it's done well, and you just feel, you have that sense of pride and ownership. It's nice to work on a good movie.
Cool. Yes.
Hey, Luis, didn't you have some questions that were sent in that you wanted to ask?
Oh, you're rushing right through.
Well, I noticed that you weren't talking on this podcast and you were drawing over there instead of paying attention to the interview.
I
thought...
Does it require my eyeballs
I
to
do.
be listening?
I require them.
I think what Larry's trying to say is he misses your sexy face, Luis.
You know what? I listen to podcasts all day long while I draw. So I'm now recording a podcast
And drawing.
and drawing. I mean, it's just
Multitasking.
Yeah.
You don't have to participate.
But I think he's really good at multitasking is what he's saying.
But what I think he's really truly saying to me is he's not going to ask his questions.
Well, didn't he? Where'd the paper go?
I was actually gonna.
There it is.
Oh.
I was gonna ask.
Well, there's only about 50 there. We probably have time for one.
It's like 3.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think what we're gonna do is like wait till the end, right? Build the suspense a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So that people
I thought
have
we
to
were gonna have
listen to the
question
whole
and
thing.
answer at the end.
Get the question
Okay.
back.
We could do it in the middle.
Okay, you wanna?
Bill, what's your favorite food?
That's from John Hansen in Wisconsin, Illinois.
You just skip. So
I like a nice medium rare steak.
Okay, awesome. Are you busy Saturday?
I know. No, I'm not.
Awesome. Are you dating anyone right now?
Married.
Married?
I'm married.
Oh, married. How can you do
don't
that?
date your wife. So what you're saying is you don't date your wife. That's terrible.
Wow.
Occasionally go on dates. Yes, many dates.
Mrs. Bill Deli, we apologize. No, I'm just kidding. I have one question. Seriously, can I buy your award?
No.
Okay,
It actually
cool.
says you're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's-
But he can give it to you.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, there you go. That's that. Why didn't I think of
Yeah,
that?
but you even earned it.
And Bryce.
Oh.
Good with it. Oh.
Wow. He got me. He
Nice.
got
Sorry,
me.
I went to the.
Thank you for joining us
All right, I'll see you guys later.
for another
We're done.
corner booth.
Yeah.
This will be the last Chance Raspberry podcast. I don't need to take this. I got plenty of people out there waiting to abuse me.
Wow. Man, so what are some of the more offbeat
Now I feel
things?
bad. Yeah, you can have it.
What are some of the more offbeat things you think you've worked on? Like you things that you worked on you never thought like were a little out of the blue or different.
I was a janitor.
No kidding.
Since you've been in the business?
No.
I meant since you've been in the business.
Oh.
Working as an artist. Something offbeat.
Well, I art directed on a Flash production for for Big Idea, and also for real early on the on Focus on the Family.
Mm-hmm.
Those were kind of offbeat, I
Yeah.
suppose. What else?
Well, did you? I bet you never imagined that you were going to be. Of course, when CG, you and I started to get into CGI animation at the same time. I bet you never imagined that a lot of your development work would style how digital characters look.
No.
So you've actually, I think, you've done a lot more character work in the last 5, 6, 7 years
yeah,
than you
absolutely.
did in the previous. Even though you did some development,
Yeah.
Now you get to do more character work along with your environmental
Yeah,
designs,
working
and
over
things like that.
real cartoon characters and making them, fleshing them out to look CG.
So that's how your job has your job description has changed overall. And
Well, at Nickelodeon, yeah. So we did a lot of character work. We did matte paintings. We would do fixes for different shots. If a big giant rock hit the ground and it needed rubble, I'd paint that. Or the classic scorch mark or hole in the wall when someone flies through a hole. I have to paint the hole so you can see through it, and those type of things. Fixes, and then color script. So that's kind of common.
What's a color script?
A color script is essentially you take the rough storyboard, and you do a quick color pass on it. This is how we did it.
Almost like a comic book, kind of?
Yeah, but just loose to give a direction of the mood and the color for a specific scene, especially if it's something dramatic is happening, like a magic ray, or there's a firelight, or
You might start out a show and it's got a particular mood, and you'd paint colors for that mood, and as the mood and the conflict through the storytelling change, the color would become affected, and so the
Right.
mood and color would. Hopefully, the goal is to affect the mood of the audience watching it. Right?
Exactly, yes. And then the CG show, they tend to have one lighting rig for day, one lighting rig for night, and maybe one for sunset or dawn. And they would use that. But then there were specific ones where they need to change the color and they have like a certain budget to do that on each show. So you would do a color script.
So if you had a fight sequence and you want everything to be gritty, you might color everything.
Or something magical's happen.
Yeah.
so how is I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around the painting idea, because you're primarily a painter.
Correct.
And now when you first started, everything was being hand drawn, and you started on backgrounds because backgrounds were hand painted.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still the case in the CG or digital now environment where things are now? Is the painting what's the job?
How did it change?
How has it changed now that everything's starting to go more digital and including CGI,
Right.
3D, and all
Well,
that?
there's some things that are it's not as work intensive. All those things with painting and your understanding of value and light and atmosphere and distance and all those things come into play when you're doing the CG. But there may be more use of photographic elements. You may be doing more cloning, but you still need to make it look like it's going together, so you have those sensibilities as a painter. But also understanding how to paint digitally, if you're just creating, comes into play, because you still have to work over top of those things and make adjustments, and so your eye doesn't change and your taste don't change. You just it's a little different bag of tricks,
Well, a lot of people don't know this, but you're also a really accomplished portrait artist, digital, not just digital paint, but traditional too. And from my perspective, especially when digital animation started to really become more popular and feasible, those who made the leap from traditional to digital brought that tool set with them. Do you think that's the case with?
No, absolutely.
Learning to paint with an actual medium that's physical.
Yeah, because you get your sensibilities from that, how it's supposed to look, and so and they make a lot of programs that look like traditional media, and so if that's what you like to do, you can make digital painting look like traditional. Really,
I remember
really close. It's hard to tell the difference.
I remember kind of an offbeat project that you did. Didn't you do something for Epcot?
Yes. I was. I did work at Epcot from Millennium Village, and they had me paint.
It's Disney World.
Yeah,
right?
Disney World. And what the job description originally was they needed someone who could do portraits, but they needed to be in blacklight. And so a traditional blacklight painters aren't necessarily classically trained. So I've never worked in blacklight paint before, so I just figured it out. but they, it was easier
So
to
you had to
take a
paint
portrait.
these huge
Well,
paintings,
well,
right?
then also some of them were just normal portrait size, about 10 by 12. But then also we had to paint a huge background that was like 17 feet.
So they flew you
35
out
feet.
there,
Yeah.
right?
Well, they flew me out there, but they also had a big hangar over by the airport, and they just had the whole room black, with big giant plastic bags with lots of black light, and I had to go in there and paint it.
Yeah.
And then
sounds
do it very
really-
quickly. Yeah.
That sounds cool,
Yeah,
man.
it was kind of cool. It was just getting in with the big brushes after doing a color comp, a little illustration to match to.
Yeah, a guide so that you know
Yeah,
what the heck you're
yeah,
what's-
had a
So what's a
wrap it
color
up.
comp?
Color comp is just a smaller. It's basically a guide to what you're going to do in the big one. So you do a little painting to show what you where you want to go with it.
It's almost like a thumbnail.
Yeah, it's a
before
thumbnail.
You do, to
Yeah.
figure out some of your thinking before you execute something larger.
Exactly. I mean, it could be a complete finished illustration. But if you're going to replicate it, you need it worked out.
And that's always blown my mind, man, how painters would do a painting before the actual painting. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, man, that's so much work. And that's why the finished one looks so good. But I've seen some of those comps, and they're little
They're
masterpieces.
Just
Yeah.
as finished
They're
as
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes
yeah.
and sometimes they're nicer, because a lot of times in the little ones, you're not being super particular about how well you're painting it. You're just
sure.
trying to make it work. And
a sketch,
yeah.
yeah.
And because of that, it's got more life to it. It's
got more
fresher.
life to
It's
it,
freer.
Yeah. And so when you get the bigger one, it's inevitably it's like, oh, the color comp looks better.
Yeah.
You had a
I
question?
have a question. Yeah, well, with the evolving technologies of animation, do you find that you're always having to take classes or hang out with other people who know to learn, or is it that you're more compartmentalized and other people do that other new stuff?
Yes.
Thank you.
Except
Yeah.
except if you co-own a studio.
Well, it's funny. The thing is I did. It was. I knew I had to change. I was looking for a job, and I'll get around to your question in
Yeah,
a second.
that's fine.
I was looking for a job, and I saw there was a listing at Sony. So I called Sony up. It was for Sony Animation, and they asked me, "Do I know Photoshop?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I fiddled with it a little bit." And they didn't want to look at my portfolio, and I'd already worked on features and had a decent
when they
reputation.
say Photoshop, do they mean the brand name Photoshop
Yeah, Adobe
or
Photoshop.
something like
No,
Photoshop?
they meant Adobe
they meant
Photoshop, the
okay.
painting program.
Okay.
And so I said, I better learn Photoshop. And so I started working with Larry at Cornerstone, and he said, you got to learn Photoshop, and he gives me the manual. And I remember looking in the manual and opened up the first page, and I was like,
That's
okay.
like the worst.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay. So if you press Control and there's alternative, what's this alternative button? What is that? And like, what does that mean? Alternative to what? And so then I go to the keyboard and I go, oh, there's a button that has ALT on it. Okay, that's good. Anyways, so yeah, once I started playing
You
with
picked
it.
it up pretty quickly.
Oh, once I got on
Then
it,
you came in.
without the manual at all, I found that I had to learn it just by playing with it, and it wasn't that big of a deal. But so, yes, I had to experiment and learn, and then you meet with other people and you learn stuff from your friends all the time.
Bill and I had a studio together for 4.5 years, and we've got some projects we're doing. I've got another studio that Bill's working on some side projects, Ghost Train Pictures, and so we kind of learned the digital side of things together,
Right.
kind of on the fly. We were doing the Tigger movie, and Bill Art directed the sequence on that.
So what you're
and,
saying is that you were just making it up as you went.
Yeah,
yeah,
made it
but
work,
we were basically taking all of our traditional tools and pulling them into the digital world.
Yes.
Because we were doing CGI, digital animation tests, we were doing digital ink and paint, all digital backgrounds, and when we came from the realm of doing almost everything by hand, so things had changed quite a bit.
But I mean, having said that, I did take a Maya class at Glendale Community, and the nice thing about that is when you take those kind of classes, you're not worried about.
The pressure.
Yeah, you're just trying to learn how to do the program, because you already have your sensibilities, so that's you're already taught, you already learned how to draw and art and those type of things. And so it's not that you don't stop learning that stuff, but it's not why you're taking it.
And Glendale Community College would be affordable.
Oh yeah, it was. And the nice thing about that is, I was able to buy the Maya program instead of paying whatever $4,000 or $5,000 for it. I was able to, get it for a couple $100 because I was a student
I mean,
now.
how did you decide on Glendale Community College?
It was close by. I heard some people did some things.
Otherwise, be like, oh yeah, I got to go to whatever kind of
PCC is fine.
like the animation studio and the animation school in Burbank.
Oh, the Animation Academy?
Yeah, you might go. Oh, I have to go there to learn.
Right. No, I knew I didn't need it. I just needed someone to show me how to do it because Maya is not intuitive, and so at least not for me. So I needed someone to show me where all the buttons.
Maya is not.
So I needed to learn where all the buttons and switches are and things, and get a better understanding. So when I was at Nickelodeon, they were struggling with getting their textured characters working.
And you're like,
overseas.
I know how to do that.
I didn't. But I was familiar enough with it so I could sit down with someone who did and pick it up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, we've done some animation tests that you painted textures for at our studio, and so you weren't coming at it from complete.
No, I understood the concept and things like that. But so it's a good idea to always learn new stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, I tend to find that I learn those as I have to. And I like to do it when someone pays me to figure it out. So they can go, we need you to do that, and I can do this other thing that's, it's kind of like the blacklight thing. I could do the painting of portraits, and doing it in blacklight was sort of, it wasn't that big of a deal. So I tend to do that.
Frankly, in my opinion, if you hadn't worked, I mean, let's be honest, your work is great. But I also know, because I've worked with you so much, how hard you worked at it to get it to be as good as it is. I mean, that's the reason I think you've been able to work on so many great projects, is because of your ability to do the work and do it well, and to put not just because we all as professionals who've been doing this for 10 or 15 years or longer can lose our day-to-day passion for art.
Right.
But that's where hopefully the professional side comes in and is the mediator between not necessarily having all that self-starting passion and having to get the job done.
Well, that's why God created the deadline.
Yes. and that's also why He created things like debt.
Yes.
And mortgages.
Yes. Busy. But no, there's been times when I'm not exactly sure where to go with, or I'm not emotionally attached to something, or just not happy with what I'm doing. But it's still...
That's what I'm here for, to tell you. That's not working.
So beyond Larry's inner voice telling me, is my own, that keeps you want it, you have a certain standard that you're trying to do things. I always kind of joke, when in doubt, just make it look good. That you have to eventually just have to go for it and not worry if it's exactly right or wrong.
As long as it's done.
If there's indecision, you're not really sure which way to do, you have to make a conscious decision. I'm just going to trust my own sensibilities and make it look good. And then at the very, very least, it looks good. It may not be right, but you have this. You can save face.
Yeah, totally. It's not what you asked for, but you like it, right?
It's not right. It's not good for it, but at least
that's awesome, man. Yeah.
Different interpretations, like, this is what I think you might like.
And how many times is it better? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, sometimes you just go for it, and then it's like, oh, wow, that's actually even cooler than what I was thinking. So that's awesome.
But at least it's just a standoff. With digital paint, it's so easy to fix things now, too. So sometimes you have to, it's just these own little roadblocks you get when you're working on things. It's, you get indecision, and you feel insecure about where you're going with something. You just have to kind of go for it. Just do it.
What's the biggest difference between painting with real paint, the medium, on what did you usually paint on? A canvas for film?
Usually cold press
board?
illustration board, 100.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes 300.
What's the difference between that and working on the computer? I mean, do you miss the paint?
No.
Really?
You hear how fast he answered that question, you guys?
Not at all.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so when you started going into the digital realm, did everything that you painted, did it still look like paint, or?
Most of the time it did. It had the same sensibilities.
Unless you're doing something that was like stylized, right?
Yeah, or it was very, very flat and graphic, or flash animation.
So like when we were doing the Larry Boy cartoon adventure shows, that had a lot of very flat graphic styling to it, and used textures and that kind of thing, right? As opposed to, but you still had to apply light and shadow and mood and that kind of thing.
Yes.
So
Color relationships.
Is there a specific style that you enjoy, or do you like painting different styles and meeting the needs of different films?
I always have my certain go-to look that I like.
What is that?
it's just more of a basic naturalistic, classic Disney, I would call it.
Yeah.
It's something I'm comfortable in, and I like doing. If it's more naturalistic is something that's kind of where I'll shoot. I mean, I would like a good example is like Tack in The Power of Juju. It was kind of a combination of Drew
The
Struzan.
Nickelodeon show you worked
Yeah,
on?
it was a combination of like Drew Struzan and Frank Frazetta.
That sounds like an awesome combo.
Which is exactly my taste, and I added like a little bit of Sargent, and some of the, I was doing the character stuff. So that was.
So it sounds like you're a student of other painters' work.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ultimately, that's what it is. I mean, you have different artists you like, and you kind of put those into your work. You emulate things. And I think that's basically what becomes a filter of taste. Becomes your style. But having said that, because you trained your eye to copy things as a tool to get better as an illustrator, you can mimic other styles and do things, and then those all become your bag of tricks eventually.
So you're talking about characters
and/or backgrounds.
Okay. And I just totally forgot what I was going to ask you, but continue that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll jump in when I remember.
Well, anyways, when it talks like you're thinking of Frank Frazetta, you're thinking characters or Drew Struzan, but there's a look to their environment they also have.
Now, when you started doing background, that was your first thing in animation that you started doing.
Correct.
Okay. So did you have at that time an idea of like characters? Did you have a style yourself, or were you still developing?
I was doing a lot of
style?
characters. I've always liked to do, like I said, I wanted to be a comic book artist.
Right.
So when you look at my sketchbook, I don't have backgrounds in there. I have like Spider-Man, the Hulk. I like Conan.
So you like that style?
Fairies.
That, for
yeah.
you, that was your style.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you've done portrait painting professionally too, right?
Yeah. I mean, at heart, I'm a portrait artist. And when I go to the museum, that's what I'm looking at is portraits, and that's the thing
As realism, or
Yeah, naturally. I want to sit down and do a portrait of you. I want to make it look like you and make a statement about who you are and make it,
Okay.
And so that's
So you don't
very traditional.
So not necessarily realism in the sense it's going to look like a photograph.
No, exactly. Naturalism, I would say, is better. Yeah. And you could say it's American Impressionist because I'm trying to express myself with brushwork and things like that. But not. I mean, I wouldn't. Those are the people I like.
So do you still do that?
Not lately. Lately, I've been busy. You got a family. You go home. I'm inspired. But occasionally, I plan on doing it again.
And it's fun, right? Like eventually you kind of
get into
doing it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Cool.
We have a painting class at Nickelodeon. They're doing like a portrait painting, and originally they asked me to teach it, and I wasn't sure it was a painting class. I was like, what do you want to do? And so I kind of declined, and another girl that I'm working with, a colleague, is going to teach it, but I'm taking the class because I thought, that sounds kind of fun to do some portrait painting.
So that's just a fun thing to do. It's not like
That sounds awesome.
that's
Can
wonderful.
I go to Nickelodeon and get a painting class?
Come on, $20.
We'll trade. We can do a trade though, because Film Roman has a life drawing workshop. We can do a little
There we go. Now,
one hand washes the other.
Well, then with the life drawing, you have to have a model. So then, who's going to trade off doing that?
Same thing with the portrait thing. You have a model, but I think what they're doing is we're going to paint each other.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Are you going to paint each other's picture?
No. No, we're not.
So you're going to put the Cintiqs in your lap?
No, we're going to oil paints. It's oil.
What?
Yeah.
What's that?
Brushes and oil. Yeah.
I've never, what's
Real
that?
paint.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Back when I was a kid, we used
Messy,
paint. We
fun
liked
paint.
it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, so the big difference between those two is there's no Control Z. So you have to figure out how to fix your stuff. When you do make a mistake, there's like, I want to undo. I can't undo that. Okay, I'm going to have to fix it.
Have you ever done a painting, like a traditional painting, where it's almost there and something happens and you ruined it?
Almost, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. Please.
Well, there was a big painting I was doing for a production, and the last thing I
Can
want
you
to
say what production?
Yeah, it was Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, wow.
And so
That's a big
it was
production.
a big shot. You're looking up at the Phantom, and it's over the moment of betrayal. And they had the whole opera house, and the kind of paint I was working on was a matte drying paint. But for presentation, it looks better to have it shiny so you can get a full value range. So at the very last thing, I was putting the gloss medium on it. and I got a little impatient and put another coat on, and it just started breaking up and ruining the whole thing, and I had to go back and fix it, and it was it never quite looked as good.
Did you have any problems like at Disney or any, like when you're painting traditional backgrounds and you kept painting over it and to the point where you had to start over?
No,
No?
I was always able to save it.
To save it?
So
Wow.
until you put that like finishing gloss on it,
Yeah.
you can pretty much just keep going back
yeah,
over
you could,
it, right?
yeah. It was just disappointing because it was done.
Yeah.
And you want to fix it.
Oh,
At
man.
Disney, there was a couple times we worked with gouache, and there was, if you pick the wrong kind of yellow and you're trying to match something, then it becomes very difficult to go from the lemon yellow to a cadmium yellow. And one's like a greenish yellow and one's a reddish yellow. So a trick that I would do is I would take a little matte medium and just lightly mist over top of it, and then it gives you a fresh starting point. You can pretty much fix any. The difference between a professional is eventually you can pretty much fix
What about
anything.
sanding it? If you ever sand something down? Or-
Yeah.
So what would you do? Like you paint something, it gets too rough, you take a little really high grain sandpaper and just kind of knock it off, knock it down.
If you needed to, if it got too textural, you could do
Yeah.
that. Usually,
Are you talking acrylics?
yeah, mostly acrylic. But I mean, now everything's digital, so you just scan it in and fix it. But yeah,
Right.
before I would do that. Yeah, not too often. You didn't have to. You just build it up with paint.
So I know that there's a lot of interesting concept art, and that's what painters tend to want to
Yeah.
focus on. But is there more? Is there other jobs besides just concept art for painters within the animation?
Within animation?
Well, within animation, obviously, if it's CG, you have matte painting. You have, character concept things, and you do have, well, then
Development.
Development. which would be this one.
You've done all of those,
Yes,
right?
yes, and then you have things where you're fixing things afterwards. So there is that, and obviously in animation, there's
What about texture?
still background painting.
What about texture artists? Are they painters in the traditional sense that a
Some are.
art director would be?
Some are.
Some do both?
Some are traditional painters who got into it. Other people they do a lot of procedural things.
And so they focus specifically on applying a texture. Where would they get that texture from? Your painting? They would try to
Well,
emulate?
ideally, that's what they're supposed to do. They take a concept painting of, like, say you're a character, CG character, and I did a painting of you. They would look at that painting and say, okay, his flesh is this way, his hair is this color, the kind of fabric
Do you
he
ever
has.
give them any other help besides that painting? Like, do you ever pull textures for them?
If I've used a texture in the painting, I would give that to them. I personally would just rather have them just match it. That's your gig. But occasionally, they want me to do that. Especially if you're doing overseas, it's nice to give them the
I
extra
was going to
texture.
ask you about that. You're talking about them.
Them, those people.
Yeah, well, how much,
They.
how much personal contact? Well, I suppose with your smaller studio, you have a lot of personal contact with people. But with the larger productions, have you found that you're working on something and you hand it off, and it gets emailed to South Korea, and you have no input, you've lost control?
Well, it depends on your position in the company. If you're like an art director or someone, then you have control because you'll get it back, and you can either make these changes or you just change it there at the studio. But I mean, there's a lot of times when if it gets 80%, you may not like it completely, but it's good enough and you can't afford the time, and it's going to go through. So there is some of that, But most Nickelodeon was doing most of their characters in house, and they were sending everything else. But eventually, they were getting pretty good where they could do the character stuff. So now the character artists lost their job. Yay!
So Bill, I did. Some people wanted to be here, but they couldn't. So I actually asked people that I informed about this podcast. Usually, if you go to the corner booth .net, you could actually subscribe, and then you'll get informed when these live meetups.
And we're on iTunes.
Yes, and we're on iTunes. But right now, in order to get informed for these live meetups, the newsletters right now is the best way to do it. Well, we got some feedback wanting to know about some things. So, there's an artist called Andrea Krag. I'm sorry, Andrea, I couldn't pronounce her name, but she wanted to know a few things, and she wanted to ask you some questions. So she sent them to me, and I'm going to read them to you right now. The first one is, what can a self-taught artist do, and how long does it take to make a break as a junior in CG Society? If he can't afford school nor has any contact with people of like mind. So they're kind of isolated.
Well, that's tricky because it's always good to have people of like mind to encourage you.
The internet, I'm sure, helps.
Yeah, the internet helps a lot because you can kind of be connected to people within the community and get feedback. So I would highly recommend pursuing that to get inspiration and actually build relationships.
A lot of these big studio guys are on Facebook now too, so you could add them as friends and write them emails.
Yeah. And then there's also DVDs or things you can download where you could actually have that window demonstrating how to work in CG just to get.
Now more than ever, there's just that kind of.
Online classes.
So if you could be motivated and push yourself to do those things, a lot of it's just having passion, and you just go for it, and you keep wanting to get better. That's going to take you a long way.
Just the desire to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you dig it, do it. And then your originality, all of your style is going to happen naturally. It can't help but happen naturally. You have your own tastes and things you like, and just do those things for now, and it'll eventually express yourself in a style and a look that will be unique to you.
Cool.
Well, second question would be. We all have problems in life, and people who don't support you, in your ambitions, how can you find the drive and inspiration to continue to do what you like, despite all the disadvantages that threaten to crush?
Well, one of the things is finding people who aren't like that.
Yes.
Separate. You can either separate or balance.
What if they're
Wait.
Right.
What if they're your parents?
Why did you look at me when you said that? I usually pay you.
Well, some of those questions is you kind of we all have to figure those type of life questions out. It's important to obviously keep enthusiasm for those. If that's what you want to do, if you lose enthusiasm, then what's the point? You give up. And those are always the constant spiritual battles that everyone has to go to.
So the only failure is quitting.
Yeah. If you want to guarantee failure, then don't try.
Wow, that's not that I haven't heard that before, but that really is true.
Yeah,
It's tempting.
Yeah,
you're working at something. There's projects you and I've worked on that haven't taken off, and then there's stuff that we've done that really did take off, and even things that maybe didn't go in the direction we thought they would. They opened other doors.
Sure, and you learn some valuable things.
And for every person who is discouraging to you, you can find someone who will encourage you, if not more.
And it's the case with whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do, someone's going to be discouraged.
When I was a little kid, I was like 16 or 17, and I wanted to do comic book art, and I went and visited some artists who were doing that, and I showed them my work, and it was okay, and they looked at it, and they probably saw I had a little bit of talent. They said, just go to school. They weren't like super encouraging to me. They said, just go to school and get good. Get good, become a good artist, and you'll get work. And that's all I needed. I said, I can do that. I can get good.
Nice.
I was naive enough to do what I did. So you just kind of pursue that.
And think about some of the comic book artists that you and I have worked with.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff you've painted.
Yeah.
Bernie Wrightson.
Yeah.
Jeff Purvis.
Bernie is self-taught too, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's fantastic. So you can totally. It's all art is self-taught ultimately because you have to do it. It's kind of like writing. You can go and get pointers and things, but you have to write to get good. Same thing with art. You got to draw.
There's universal principles,
Yeah.
and then it's the application of said principles.
It's too bad there's not a community out there on Facebook called Draw Foo.
It'd be nice if there was something like that.
There should be places like thedrawingwebsite.com where people can go and be encouraged.
Yeah.
Right, Louise?
Wait a minute! I got it!
Any other questions?
There is one more. Okay, let me see. One more important question. How to be original when everything is already done?
Ooh, that's a good one.
And so this is it's a little bit more specific. Do you want me to read the
No, that's okay. I think I can. I think if you worry too much about being original, it can be a detriment to it. I think what you do is just don't even think about the original. With all the great masters, they looked at other masters that they liked and actually tried to emulate them. And so it'll happen naturally as you progress as an artist.
Because you're an individual.
Yeah, exactly. And
Well, say you're working on a piece and then you discover that somebody else did exactly what you wanted to do, but they did it better than you.
keep going. Try do something else.
Yeah, or take a new direction maybe to that piece and like just put a new spin on it that they didn't do.
It's always the age old question.
But does that mean that you're not original because if you finish the thing, it's gonna be the end of the world?
Yes.
Yeah, you're not original at that moment.
Larry has spoken.
Yeah, everything's already been done under the sun. So I think being excellent is original enough. Just I think a lot of times, yeah.
Well, too, there's this huge, sort of stigma or weight on this, pressure to be original and everything. And look around, you see stuff that you love that's like the coolest thing you've ever seen, but someone or many people out there are trying to do their own version of that. And then if you go back far enough, you'll almost always find something that came before it that's very similar. So it's like...
Yeah, everything is a little bit derivative of everything.
Right. I think the trick is being different enough, being familiar enough, and adding you don't have to be completely original, just a little bit. And so you're adding a little different something. So Disney would do this. He would go into a place like Bob's Big Boy and see how they're managing in the kitchen, and he goes, "Oh, I could use that in animation production," and then being that type of thing, and then take something that's common and putting it into a different environment. So that's one way of being original is you see things from a different walks of life, whether it's whatever visual you look at it, go, oh gosh, I never thought of using a mosaic or what is they what do they do with not the tartans, but when you have textiles and using something like that or some other interest in adding to it. So if you, at a certain point, I guess if you could focus on it, just don't focus so much on it you forget the principles of the good principles of drawing and composition and color and quality.
So those principles, if you can nail those principles so that you're competent at it, your style will naturally just become its own.
But you got to walk before you can run, and the originality part of it is kind of like the frosting on the cake. Make sure you get your all the other things first. You got to have your foundations.
You've told me before when you've seen scenes that I've animated, and I'm not animating all the time, but when I have animated, especially full animation and done a performance, you've come up to me and said that character's you.
Oh yeah.
I could tell you did that shot, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, how did you know? And I still, it's like, how did you know I animated that shot?
Your style.
There's certain characteristics,
especially
that
in a performance.
Yeah, there's certain things that I would see Larry act, and especially as an animator, he has to act. And so a lot of times animators act out things physically before they do things, and he has a certain way of moving. And there's also certain expressions and key things that he draws that looks like him. His expression just looks like you.
What would you say of people that have looked
a lot?
Of people that have commented on your work? Has anyone ever said, have you ever picked up on a certain comment that comes up a lot, that maybe there's a certain quality that may stand out in your work? Like someone says, oh, I think that's a Bill Deli painting. Like, have they said, no, Bill's really moody in his painting, or he's really, he's got this, you ever heard like a common theme ever in some of your work?
Kind of, usually it has to do with light or dramatic lighting.
How you use lighting?
Yeah, I would have to say. But those kind of things are usually they usually don't say that to me personally. But when I have heard about it.
What about behind your back? Usually people would say behind your back.
There's that guy. There's that guy again. Oh, here he is. Okay, that's usually what I hear. Okay.
But I've heard it said also that concerning originality that if you actually were to create something truly original, people wouldn't understand.
Right. Well,
and it wouldn't be original long because there would be 18,000 copies of it.
But
you did it first.
Something so original would be inhuman.
Yeah.
Beyond human comprehension. To actually.
No, I think.
What am I looking at?
I think like Apple was the master of taking things that have already been done or unique, and packaging it in a way that's that seems different and original, but it's just like they just did it better. So I think and I think like even Picasso was that he'd visit his buddies and they would all turn this painting rooms because he would see what they're doing and just do it a lot better than them and get it out quicker.
Picasso didn't paint like Picasso first.
Well, he was very
traditional,
very gifted traditional painter.
Yeah.
I used to not think something. I saw some of his early works and he was a monster. He was so good, and he's got bored. By the time he was like 14, he was a phenomenal painter.
Nice.
We're talking about that girl wondering about being original. Especially with the internet these days, there's a niche for anything you could possibly come up with.
Yeah.
So for her to be afraid to be original,
well, not
she
afraid,
should just,
but pursuing it.
Right, yeah, she
she's
should
afraid
just-
that she's not being original.
just
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
because, and then that'll make herself happy.
Yeah.
And put it out there, and she'll start to find people of like mind, even though it sounds like she's just closeted and she doesn't have that
Yeah, she
connection
doesn't.
right
Yeah,
now.
it's like well, I want to draw Spider-Man in this pose, doing this thing, and somebody else has already done it, but you didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be different
Yeah.
just because you did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
personal style will show through.
There's
Like,
only one you, and that's really all that comes down to. That's beautiful because no one can take that away
I
from
mean,
you.
even some of the early 50s animation stuff that seemed so wild and unique and original,
At that
they were
time.
ripping off Cubism.
Yeah.
And things and then made it move, and they did it better than the guy walking down the steps. It was all angular, and those guys did it. They designed it more exciting, but they were basing it off of
Oh,
someone
that
else's
reminds me,
stuff.
have you ever seen like UPA's Telltale Heart?
Yeah.
How graphic
yeah,
that
yeah,
was,
yeah,
and like almost like paper cut.
Something like
out.
Yeah, it looked a lot like some of the painting of the time.
And guys, I want to just throw this out there because it seems like a great place to mention it. If you guys that were around when sort of the CG whole boom sort of started happening in the world of animation, you thought like, wow, this is totally cool. They're doing something like brand new with animation. I was watching a Disney cartoon from the 30s, and it was great because they were experimenting with live action 3D backgrounds where they were rotoscoping going through a hallway.
That was actually a Fleischer staple.
Well, Fleischer did the turntables, right? The 3D turntable,
Popeyes.
so that the background looked 3D. But this is actually a Mickey Mouse cartoon where Mickey's like walking down this like labyrinth or hallway or something, and you can tell that the background is rotoscoped, and that like they just filmed someone from that point of view walking down a hallway, so that everything moves in perfect space, but it's hand drawn. And
so they used it as that's awesome.
And it's really, and I'd never seen that in any other Disney cartoon, and it predates all the ones you kind of that are big now, like the color ones. It was a black and white classic. If you want to check it out, it's called The Mad Doctor, and it's awesome. It's dark though. Don't show the kiddies.
Not safe for work.
Yeah, but see again, it's something that they had done, and I'm sure they were referencing. They were pioneers. They did a lot of cool experimental stuff, but they had influences and references.
German expressionist film from
Exactly. There you go. Yeah.
Have you ever seen Dr. Caligari's Cabinet?
That's so
Parts of
odd.
it. I need
That
to
is
see the
wild.
whole thing.
If you want to see, it looks like a Tim Burton movie, but it was done in the silent film era.
It's like the teens, right? Or the aughts. It's awesome.
Yeah. So the trick is just find somebody really obscure that's cool, and then do that.
Very cool. Well, guys, any more questions? This has been a most.
Wait! I don't want to interrupt Luis while he's doing his ink wash.
It's really nice.
Hey, Luis, did you know we're doing a podcast?
I was gonna.
Yeah.
I'm kind of bummed that we kind of rushed over Bill's career because you know him so well. You're like, and how about when you worked here? And how about when you worked here?
Well, did I forget anything?
I don't know. What?
Well, you're doing it.
missed
I did work in
Hanna-Barbera.
Well, I also worked in a video game called 50 Cent. And I did a lot of games. 50 Cent, yeah. It was called Bulletproof because he was shot 9 times and survived. So I was the character.
What?
Yeah, someone shot at him. Yeah.
No, I know.
That's why he's got like a scar on his chin.
Not just in the game.
But for life, yeah.
That's why they made a video game.
Yeah, it was through Nuvendi, and I was the lead character, the guy, which is funny because I was doing all these, gangbangers and Yakuza, and it was all these different gangs from around the world, the Colombians, the Latin Lions, It was all these, and I had to design all the different characters for it. It was fun.
Wow.
So that's
And you were at Hanna-Barbera for a stint too, way back, right?
that was my first gig.
Yeah?
Was in Hanna-Barbera. Doing
Before
background.
Disney?
Yeah. And I got laid off, and then I got picked up over it.
What did you do at Hanna-Barbera?
I did a little layout, mostly painting, mostly background, like Fender Benders and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Bill and Ted!
Yeah, I did.
Yes!
I was a newbie.
The highlight of my Saturday morning in the 80s. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bill.
Did you feel confident when you were doing that stuff?
No. I was actually more confident was at Disney, because what happened when I was at Hanna-Barbera, I'd get these really, like, the guys that have been there for years, and they could just give you these scribbles, and I wasn't sure if that was the style I was supposed to be drawing or painting.
Or that was their shorthand?
Yeah, and so the guys who were there knew the style, and they would make adjustments. And so I would get something, I go, okay, I guess they just want these lines here, okay, and I'll do that, and then I'd get the background supervisor goes, well, see, the structure of a roof, it actually has sides and depth to it. And I'm like, I know that, but I thought I was doing something stylish. So when I got to Disney and I got a bad drawing, or one that was rushed, I knew exactly what to do with it.
It wasn't always bad. Sometimes it's just like drawing.
Yeah, sometimes it was bad.
Artist shorthand.
But
sometimes
exactly.
it's artist shorthand
Yeah,
too.
exactly. And so, but I knew what the finished project was going to be, and so it was much easier for me to do that, because I was more familiar
Isn't
with the
that
style.
a fault of like art direction or
Yes.
bad
But
art
also,
direction?
or
lack of,
or
maybe.
yeah,
Or lack of.
and also some of it is just inexperience, because everyone else was on board, and they didn't realize what my shortcomings. Sometimes you get so used to doing things, it's
Well, also, I assume you got a crew. If you've got a crew that's been working together for 15 years, and someone new comes in and they don't know, the ropes
you don't
yet.
know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many times when I've had to show something and I didn't realize you get so familiar with a certain aspect of it that you have to
pass
show
over
those things. That's why like manuals to art programs are always so horrible, because they make all these assumptions that
You pass
something.
over the really important
Yeah,
stuff that
just the
they figure
basic,
you're
just
gonna know.
just the basic stuff, and that's what you really need is what's the alt key.
So are you working on anything fantabulous right now that we should know about?
I'm working on a really cool show called Bad Seeds, and it's from the creator Carl Greenblatt, who did Chowder, and he also worked on
cool.
a couple other shows. He was on SpongeBob, but it's a really fun show, and it's really different looking. It's a traditional 2D style, but really wild painting. It's got half tones, photo textures in it, but it also feels like a really loose watercolor.
Where's this coming?
Nickelodeon.
For Nickelodeon.
And it should be coming out, I think, near the end of the year that you start seeing it. Maybe the first of 2015.
Target audience?
The usual Nickelodeon audience, 4 to 11, I think. But it's really heartwarming. They're
And
sweet.
the adults like to watch it.
Yeah, but it's really heart is sweet, and there's a bunch of animal characters, but there's sometimes they'll have some weird invented creatures. The two of the main characters, they're described as imps, and they don't look like anything else. But then you have an obvious owl and
Does this have CG characters in it?
no, it's all 2D.
Oh wow! So you just came off of doing Kung Fu Panda,
Yeah.
doing all CG to
Correct.
something that's all
Traditional. Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah. And this is my first art directing gig at Nickelodeon.
Nice, man. Congrats.
Thanks.
Is Kung Fu Panda done? That's it?
Yeah, they've wrapped up their obligation with, and so in 2015, if DreamWorks wants to do Kung Fu Panda TV show again, they can start it up, but they had like a
They're doing another movie though.
yeah, and so they'll probably do another TV show.
Yeah.
Keep the franchise going.
Yeah, it's a fun franchise. I liked it.
Well, Bill, thanks for joining us. Glad you took the time out to come visit and get together and do this here at Bob's Big Boy. We'll probably do this once or twice a year. So those of you who are continuing to listen to our podcast, stay tuned for more. We've got a few that are in the works. We've got some other interviews coming up. A couple that we've done that we've just got to put some finishing touches on before they're out there. And thanks again for the Drawing website sponsoring this episode of The Corner Booth.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
it was my pleasure, and hopefully some of the things I said were helpful to somebody.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If anything that wasn't, I'll be sure to cut out.
And real quick, Bill, I was
You will be? Okay, I'll give you this.
I'm
to
not. Listen,
edit.
like Bill's an art director. As Bill is an art director, I'm a podcast director.
Do you have any personal projects or websites that you'd like to promote before we
yeah,
say
that's right.
goodnight?
Do you have a website?
Yeah, BillDeliArt.com.
Awesome.
We're gonna have to put that in the show notes.
Yes, definitely. We'll post that link and real
Can
quick.
your work be seen anywhere else?
Oh my gosh!
Well,
look at that.
I am working in conjunction with Ghost Train Pictures on some projects on the side,
Oh, cool.
and it's Ghost Train Pictures.
Only because and he only remembered it because somebody threw a business card at his face.
Thank you for joining us at the corner booth. And but in all seriousness, Bill, thanks again.
Thanks,
and
Bill.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next time at
The corner booth.
Yay.
May I meet Mr.